This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
UAE oil producer Abu Dhabi is set to export more of its flagship Murban crude in April, two trade sources said on Friday, adding to signs that top exporters in the Middle East are stepping up supplies just as concern grows that any U.S. strike on Iran may disrupt flows from the region. U.S. President Donald Trump has said he is considering a strike on Iran to pressure it to agree a deal to curb its nuclear program. The United States has assembled a large military force in the Middle East in recent weeks. The United States and Iran news story in Geneva on Thursday. A geopolitical risk premium has built up on oil prices on fears that a conflict will disrupt Middle East supply through the Strait of Hormuz, analysts say. Oil hit $73 a barrel on Friday, the highest level since July.
Oil prices rose about 2% on Friday, with traders bracing for supply disruptions as nuclear talks between the United States and Iran had yet to reach an agreement. Brent crude futures settled at $72.48 a barrel, up $1.73, or 2.45%. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude finished at $67.02 a barrel, up $1.81, or 2.78%. The two sides agreed to extend indirect negotiations into next week, but traders grew skeptical that an agreement between U.S. President Donald Trump's administration and Iran was possible.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Several tanker owners, oil majors and trading houses have suspended crude oil, fuel and liquefied natural gas shipments via the Strait of Hormuz after the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran and Tehran said it had closed navigation, trading sources said on Saturday. "Our ships will stay put for several days," one top executive at a major trading desk said. Satellite images from tanker trackers showed vessels piling up next to big ports, such as Fujairah in the United Arab Emirates, and not moving through Hormuz. Multiple vessels in the area have received VHF transmission from Iran's Revolutionary Guards that no ship is allowed to pass the Strait of Hormuz, an official with the EU naval mission Aspides told Reuters.
U.S. oil production fell for the second consecutive month in December to its lowest level since June last year, while demand reached a multi-month high, the Energy Information Administration said on Friday. Crude oil output averaged 13.66 million barrels per day in December, down about 133,000 barrels of oil per day from November, the EIA said. That was the largest month-over-month decline in U.S. oil output since January 2025. When adverse weather caused shut-ins at major production centers. The U.S. is the world's top oil-producing nation as well as its top consumer, but analysts have been expecting output to slow in response to the decline in oil prices in recent years. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures were trading near $67 on Friday, compared with about $77.50 at the same time in 2024. Next, we have the top news in metal market. Gold rose to near a one-month high on Friday and was headed for a seventh straight month of gains, supported by geopolitical tensions after the United States and Iran extended nuclear talks, while softer U.S. Treasury yields further boosted bullion. Spot gold was up 0.8% at $5,230.56 an ounce by 1:38 p.m. Eastern Time, 18:38 GMT. Hitting its highest level since January 30 earlier in the session. Prices have climbed 7.6% so far in February. U.S. gold futures for April delivery settled 1% higher at $5,247.90.
Copper prices hit a 4-week high on Friday and was set for a seventh consecutive monthly gain as demand optimism outweighed concerns over stocks piling up. Benchmark 3-month copper on the London Metal Exchange rose 0.4% to $13,355.50 a metric ton by 1700 GMT after touching $13,527, its highest since January 30. The metal used in power and construction hit a record high of $14,527.50 on January 29 after a wave of speculative buying. Base metals have been also supported by investment demand for hard assets since October, one metals trader said.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
U.S. wheat futures rallied to a one-year high on Friday as worries about a U.S.-Iran military conflict sparked short covering by funds that hold large short positions in the market. Corn scaled a 7-week top, fueled by technical buying and spillover support from wheat. Soybeans rose to a 20-month peak as investors weighed likely strong demand from biofuels makers against uncertainty about purchases by top importer China and a likely record harvest in Brazil. Commodities markets have been unsettled as investors fretted about inconclusive talks on Thursday between Washington and Tehran, despite mediator Oman's talk of progress. Other markets are taking cues from crude oil, which rose 2%.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.